A lot of people don't have energy. If you don't have energy, it's going to be a tough life. To be successful, you need energy. Donald Trump. All right. Good morning. Welcome to another episode of the Liberty Dad podcast, a discussion on politics and culture. I am your host, DL, America's most objective libertarian. Don't let anybody ever tell you different. If you're tuning in live, thank you so much for giving me your time so early. All right, folks, we're back at it. First things first, I just want to remind everybody I am doing evening shows. Now, you might be like, why are you doing that? Well, my family's out of town. What else should I do? I mean, I could go to a Coldplay concert. Wah, wah. Is it is it this one? Is it, nope. Yeah, there you go. That's a good one. Let me try that again. Let's rewind. I could go to a Coldplay concert. I need to mark these buttons so that I could like do this more quickly. Um, but no, what's going on is uh, I'm doing this Rumble thing. We're trying to grow the channel, and I'm taking advantage of my family being out of town. Now, speaking of, I will not be doing a show Friday morning. I will not be doing a show Monday morning because I'm going to actually go catch up with them. I'm riding up to where they are with a friend, and we are going to a wedding. So I'm just going to take the opportunity to have a nice weekend, away from podcasting and politics. Don't worry, folks. I will still be on Twitter because I'll have my phone handy, right? And my wife will be like, hey, put your phone away. And I'm like, but I'm working. That's my excuse now, right? Like now that I do this, I'm like, I'm working. It's not really a good excuse. And don't worry, she sees right through it. At any rate, yes, real quickly, good morning to you, John. Thank you so much for tuning back in. Appreciate it. Good morning, time surfing alien. And then My VA lady says, how close are we to 20 chatters on Rumble for this month? I'll get to that in just a second. Let me finish up the announcements really quickly. So I will. So I'm not going to be here Friday, not going to be here Monday, but I will be back Tuesday. So this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm doing my morning shows and I'm doing evening shows, and then I'll do the same thing next week, which will wrap up the month. That will get me all of my numbers for Rumble. I probably will be really close to having most of the numbers that I need by the end of this week. So that's pretty cool. Speaking of numbers, I was asked how close are we to 20 chatters on Rumble for the month? And so let's take a look here. I'm not going to put it up on the screen just because it's not quite ready. But the I'm supposed to have 20 chatters. That is that's the new requirement as of this month. And so in the Rumble Creator Program for which I am enrolled, I have to have 30 hours of stream time, which includes 5 hours of Rumble Premium. Okay, so that can be like 25 and 5 or 30 and 5 or more than that. But I have to have at least 35 of which can be Rumble Premium. What that means is I stream to Rumble and it's premium content, which means you have to have a paid subscription in order to watch it. Okay. Then I also have to have 200 watch hours. And so doing well there, we're at right about 154. And then 20 chatters, for which I have about 16. So if you are watching at any time in this show from Rumble and you have an account or you want to make an account, please chime in. Excuse me. It helps out the channel tremendously, helps me grow. Growth means that, the ads that are out there will pay me more money and then I can do more things. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. So yes, definitely help out the channel. We are getting there. They put the 20 chatters in there and I was like, man, I don't know. I'm not really sure if I can meet that. And there's always a possibility I won't. Okay. But with your help, we will get there. And if not, we'll keep going. That's just how it works. The market is tough, and you just got to get out there and fight for your piece of the pie. That's what I'm going to do. So that's what you got. I will tell you tonight. Now, I saw that John says, "Man, I can't wait for the evening stream." Goodness, my throat's all checked. I was fine earlier, and then the show starts, and all of a sudden everything wants to hit you. Um, so can't wait for the evening stream. Now, I may be slightly disappointing, but you know what? My intention before the show, I was going to say, like, look, I've been going through the Mom Donnie's platform. He's running for mayor out of New York City. He is a Democratic socialist. Okay. This is not me going, oh, he's a socialist. Like, he is a self-avowed Democratic socialist, and his platform very much reads Democratic socialist. It very much reads socialist in the very literal sense. So not this squawking and just throwing names out like it's literal. So I'm going through it and I'm like, all right, here are the problems. Here's how a libertarian might approach this, so on and so forth. So my intention was to do Mom Donnie tonight, Mom Donnie tomorrow night. Tonight, I intend to do paying for our agenda, taxing corporations and the 1%. That's one of the items that he has on his platform, on his website. And then tomorrow night, climate and green schools for a healthier New York. So we're going to talk about that tomorrow night. Those are going to be premium. However, so that there's a little disappointment there in that if you don't have a premium. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to figure this out. Since somebody in the chat said, look, I'm looking forward to tonight. Here's what I'm going to do just for you, John, and anybody else, actually. I am going to, for the first part of the show, stream something publicly. Then I'll switch over. That way, since you're anticipating it, will you get something? Because here's what I want to do for you folks. If you're going to tune in, you're going to jump in on the chat, then I want to make sure that I give you some value, right? And I can do that. So I don't know what I'm going to talk about tonight, and feel free to throw it in the chat. If there's something that you're curious about, try not to make it something that's like super duper in depth, because I still got to be able to, research it competently and, put the show together for tonight. And I still have a job that I have to go to. So bear that in mind. But if there's something that you're just curious about and just like, hey, you know what? Here's what you could do. Throw it in the chat and we'll take a look and I'll either do it or I'll take notes or whatever. We'll take a look at it. Making no promises on that, but I will do something tonight because the way that Rumble is set up, I have to actually start the show publicly, and then after like 30 seconds or something like that, I can switch over. So I actually don't start the show in premium mode. I actually have to switch over afterward, which is kind of annoying, but it is what it is. Tomorrow morning, I'm going to talk a little bit more about culture. Okay. There's something that's been going around, and I thought, I got some comments on this. And there's this Jubilee video. If you're not familiar with Jubilee, they're the ones that are producing that, you know, 20 of these people versus one of this person, right? And they recently did a show with, I think it's Mehdi Hassan. I think he's from MSNBC versus 20 far right wingers. And when we say far right wingers, in this particular case, very, very literal. Okay. One of the guys, Connor, identified as a fascist. Like, honestly, when I got into politics and I started learning everything, it probably, if you had asked me, like, hey, do you ever think that you'll be talking about a guy who self-identifies as a fascist? I would have been like, no, that's crazy talk. Nobody's going to self-identify as a fascist. Yet he did. And then he got fired. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about some libertarian perspectives around, cancel culture and all that. So look forward to that tomorrow morning. And then again, Friday, I'm not going to be here. And then I've got, Monday, I won't be here, but Tuesday we will shift over and we'll do the bill review on Tuesday that I normally do on Monday. So how about that? All right. Today, what do we got, folks? Well, we're going to talk about Trump. This is my 47 weekly. So what I thought I'd do, just in the essence of time, and there's just a lot going on with Trump. He's very busy. Hence the quote. He's very busy. He's keeping busy. So I'm just going to kind of skim through some of the things that he's done, and then offer some light commentary today. So one of the things that he's done, he's signed the Halt Fentanyl Act. This was signed on July 16th, I believe. And then he also signed the Genius Act. Now, the Halt Fentanyl Act, that's kind of self-evident, right? He signed it. It's, part of the drug war. Here's my problem. Just without even reading the bill, I oppose the drug war. Why would you oppose the drug war, DL? Do you want people on drugs and dying of fentanyl? No, I do not. However, I want to point out the drug war has been going on since like the 70s. We're in 2025. So if you take, and I don't remember the specific date off the top of my head, but if you just take like 1970 and then you go to 2000, that's 30 years. Then you add 25 more years. We're at 55 years. So we're at some 50 some years of the drug war, and we're still fighting it. Now, just think about something for a moment. Imagine doing something for 50 years and being unsuccessful. I mean, you're probably like, are you talking about the Libertarian Party? No, I'm talking about the drug war, folks. The drug war has failed massively. It has not stopped drugs. We keep getting new ones. It's literally just like the way that we approach security. So you have like the TSA. I talked about it in a prior episode, and I pointed out that Bruce Sneer, who is a security expert, cryptographer, he was critical of the TSA, Patriot Act and stuff like that. And he's like, look, here's what's happening. The terrorists do something and you respond to that. So then they change and they do something else. And then you respond to that because they're like, all right, well, you responded to this last thing that I did. So clearly I can't do that. So I'll just find some other vulnerability and act on that. So it doesn't really offer you any level of actual security. It's just security theater. And you can liken it to, say, bullying. So there's a 2015 documentary called Bully. And in there, it's very interesting. The documentary follows like 3 or 4 kids in different parts of the US who are getting bullied. And they literally are just like, they're like on the bus, they're at school, they're recording the kids talking to teachers, talking to the principal. And there's one kid on there, he gets bullied a lot. And I guess he responded negatively to one of the bullies. which in my opinion would probably be positively. Because like if a kid's bullying you, well, you should respond and, and let him know I am not welcoming your bullying, and I will punch you in the face if I have to. Okay. And I understand we don't like violence around here, and I'm not suggesting that our kids go around and beat up other kids. I'm just saying, like, if kids are picking on you, you should respond in such a way that gets them to stop. Okay. So he responded in a negative way and ends up in the principal's office. The principal's like, why'd you do this? Why didn't you come to us? And he's like, well, you didn't do anything the last time. And she's like, "Oh, you don't think I did anything the last time?" And he's like, "No." He's like, and she's like, "Well, what did he do?" And she was like, the kid was like, "Oh, he sat on my head." And she's like, "Did he sit on your head again?" He's like, and and it infuriated me. I'll never forget. That's the moment where my wife and I were sitting on the couch watching it, and I started yelling at the TV. And she's like, You know they can't hear you, right?" But I'm yelling at the TV and it was funny because right before he said it, I said almost what he said, which was, well, and he kind of slinks down. It's really sad because he's trying to tell the teacher, he's like, or the principal, he's like, These kids are bullying me. They're picking on me." And she's giving him a hard time. He's the victim. And so he's like, he slinks down and his voice lowers. It kind of almost whimpers. And he's like, "Yeah, no, but they did other things." And that's exactly the point, right? With our security theater is they find a way around it. They do something else. And the same thing applies to the drug war, right? You do something, they find some way around it. So the fentanyl act. So like one of the things that the fentanyl act did, which we'll get into more in a future bill review. One of the things that it does is it puts the drug on Schedule 1, and it sets it up. Okay, fine. It's a Schedule 1 drug now, right? Because they're like, it has no medical purposes, it has no, value. Like basically, it's like saying this drug is no good in any context. Basically, what it's saying. Well, okay. Do you think the drug dealers are like, oh, stop cutting this one up and putting it in the drugs because it's a Schedule 1 now? No, right? Like, these kind of actions, in my opinion, don't really help. And the drug war has been raging on and on and on and on. And a lot of lives have been destroyed. A lot of lives that perhaps didn't need to be destroyed or could have been saved in some other way. So I'll talk about that. The next thing that he did, he signed the Genius Act. Now, this one I don't know a whole lot about. I've been trying to read up on it a little bit. It established a stable coin that's backed by the US dollar. Economics and monetary policy is really not my wheelhouse. So I'm going to take a little extra care to talk about this. My understanding so far is that it is some complaints, and I'll be digging into it. Some complaints about the Genius Act say that the stable coin has just basically been a way to implement CBDCs. And the current concern with CBDCs is that this basically establishes a social credit score. Because what would end up happening is the government could monitor all transactions and they could even limit transactions for various reasons. And we're kind of seeing that now. I just saw on social media the other day, Michael Knowles of Daily Wire has been going back and forth with who's that company? It's a transaction processing company. I'm drawing a blank on it, but it's not PayPal. It's goodness, I can't think of the name of them at the moment, but it's a payment processing company, and he's going back and forth with them, and he's like, "Look, for months, you've not been giving me my payouts," and they responded, they're like, and I don't know the details exactly, but he's been going back and forth, and we've seen this where companies will just be like, "Yeah, we're no longer doing business with you because we don't like the morality or something about the transaction." And we're not talking about illegal transaction. I mean, Michael Knowles, whether you like him or not, whether you like the Daily Wire or not, it's not relevant. He is, he's doing legitimate business. And so, and in a libertarian world, yes, a company could say, we don't like your politics. We don't like what you're saying. So therefore, we are no longer doing business with you. However, in the current world that we have, there is a problem where business is too in bed with the government. And we saw this with the Twitter files, right? When Elon Musk bought Twitter, and then what ended up happening is he divulged all these files, all these emails. He gave them to various reporters, and they, made these long tweet threads, and you were able to read it, click on links, read some of the, they had screenshots and all this other stuff, right? And we found out that the government was explicitly reaching out to Twitter and saying, "Hey, can you prohibit this person, or can you take this person's account and just make it not, reduce its reach? Can you do these things?" And they did. And then we find out, like, a lot of people were like, "Oh, there's no big deal there, whatever, blah. This is not happening. You're exaggerating that." And then we find out, like, a few years later, that Mark Zuckerberg acknowledged the same thing. He's like, "Yeah, I think he said the FBI. I believe he said the FBI reached out and were like, hey, and I think the way they did it was a little more subtle. And this is how the government works, right? Sometimes they will come out and be like, you need to do this. Sometimes it's more like, man, be a shame if we pass some legislation. Be a shame if this funding dried up, right? Like they just kind of do this. It's almost like this mob kind of mentality, right? Uh, if you ever watched like Sopranos or something like that, a lot of times it'll be more of a suggestion. They'll be like, be a shame if your building burned down, huh? Right? Like it's a very subtle threat, but it is clearly a threat. Well, that's what our government does. So sometimes it'll be direct, sometimes it'll be very indirect. So that, they just like, "Hmm, you know, imagine if this happened. Be rough, huh? But this is what we'd like to see, if you can do it. Thanks." Right? And so, this is how they operate. So for me, I look at it and I say, well, number one, I'm not a big fan of how the government manages our monetary policy in the first place. They love printing money. Printing money devalues it, right? If I have $100 and then they print 100 more dollar bills, well, then guess what? That my dollar bills have been devalued because now there's more of them. You know, this is like if you go back to the days of where we only had coins. Um, there was something called clipping, I believe. And look, we're gonna halt this right here. A lot of people are like, "Oh, the Jews, the Jews." Just stop, stop. Like, I promise you, you go back in history, you're gonna find it was not just the Jews that were doing it. They may have been the most pronounced at the time, right? By virtue of being maybe the one group that was more involved in monetary policy, but this was not just explicit to them. So what would happen is you would take a coin and you would shave off the edges, just a little bit. So it weighs just a little bit less. And so then you basically devalue it. That is the same thing as printing money. You're just devaluing, like somebody has something, they think it's worth a certain amount, there's a certain value associated with it. And then all of a sudden they find out later, like, oh, it's not because something has happened either to this or to the supply as a whole. So, at any rate, getting back to the stable coin, I think our government should be as removed as possible from our monetary supply as best as possible. We should go back to the gold standard, in my opinion. But anyway, we'll talk about the Genius Act. We'll get into the stable coin. I'll kind of help you if you don't understand the difference between stable coin and say cryptocurrency, CBDCs. We'll make sense of all of that. Okay, so we'll talk about that in the future. What else has Trump been up to? Man, these Epstein documents. He's killing me. He's killing me here. No, it wasn't Venmo. That Liberty lady asked if it was Venmo. It was not. And I'm just drawing a blank on what it was. It was, oh my goodness, I can't think of it. And I have an account with them. I don't get anything from it. I have it by virtue of it's a payment processing, and I have an account set up for our local affiliate. And I'm just drawing a blank, but whatever. I'll remember after the show. So there's that. At any rate, these Epstein documents. So let's take a look at something here. Uh, let's see here. Here's Trump. We had the greatest 6 months of any president in history of our country. Okay, that's questionable. And all the fake news wants to talk about is the Jeffrey Epstein hoax. Okay. So I want you to notice something here. The people talking about Epstein documents are right wingers. Once upon a time, tr- the fake news was the left wing outlets, or the outlets that leaned or were more sympathetic to the left, right? And now it's people on the right. They're being called fake news. You see what's going on here? Trump, if you disagree with him, you're the bad guy. That's how he operates, right? At least in word. It's very hard to determine whether or not he believes, like how much he believes a lot of this stuff. It may just be that he's being more opportunistic and like, look, I want to get this done. I'll say whatever I got to say, whether I believe it or not. I don't think he believes a lot of the things that he says. I think he says them in order to shift opinion and get what he wants. Why do I think that? Because that's how he's always been. Also, he's a billionaire. Now, I don't have anything against billionaires in general, but I do think in our current system, it is designed to help elevate those who would be that successful, but are also maybe lacking in morals that the rest of the population has and thinks exist at that level. Right. So I think that you have to sacrifice some things that an everyday average person would look at and say, that's not, you shouldn't sacrifice that. That's my and I think it varies. I think you're going to have some who have far fewer scruples than others. Okay. I think Trump is one. And I think if you look in his history, I don't think this is dogging on him unfairly. I think if you look back over his history, you can see he was very, very opportunistic, in all of his business dealings. And that's not to say opportunism is necessarily a bad thing, but when the opportunism meets maybe a lack of morals or a lack of clear, understood morals, right, that we can all say, okay, we understand the framework under which your morals are operating. I think that makes it even worse. So it could be one of those. It's like maybe he has them, but they're really limited and we just don't recognize what they are. Like, just ask yourself, what's his line? What's his red line in the sand that he won't cross for any topic? Can you tell me that? No, you can't. You really can't. I'm not really sure like, what's the line in the sand where he would say, no, I'm not doing this. I mean, think about all the things that he's flip flop on, or at least appears to flip flop, but I think it's really flip flop. He ran on immigration. We're going to deport a lot of people, and he is deporting a lot of people, but he's had a lot of conversations about, or he's come out and had a lot of public comments about, hey, agriculture workers, service workers, these people, we need to do something to provide them some level of, way to stay here because we need them. Right. So he's talking out of both sides of his mouth. On one hand, he's like, we got to get rid of all these immigrants. On the other hand, he's like, well, some of them we need to keep. Right. And so I think personally, I think he doesn't have a very specific, this is my immigration policy. I will fight for this and I will tell the American public exactly where I stand, what's happening, who's getting in my way, who's not, playing ball, et cetera, et cetera. Right. And I think this is the foundation to all of his criticism of Thomas Massey. I think he's trying to get certain things passed so that he can, talk about, hey, the greatest 6 months of any president. And then Thomas Massey's not playing ball. So he's like, oh, so he trashes him. And then he trashes everybody else because we're all like, hey, we want those Epstein documents. Here's what I think. At a minimum, there's no value add to Donald Trump with the Epstein files. That's the minimum. Like, we could get them all and we could find out, like, oh, because there's a lot of speculation. Is he in them? Did he visit the island? And, I've seen things people say like, oh, Epstein once said that Donald Trump has no morals. Okay. That doesn't necessarily mean, or something like that. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that he went to the island and was sleeping with underage girls, right? That doesn't mean that. Yes, he said some creepy things. Like, he one time said that, if his daughter Ivanka wasn't his daughter, he might date her. Okay. Very creepy. Very creepy. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he went to an island and actually did a particular action, right? He was known for going to, supposedly, he would he bought the Miss America pageant or whatever, and then he would walk into the dressing rooms, But again, that doesn't mean that he's engaging in sexual activity with them. I mean, it seems like I will say if you buy something and then take advantage of being able to walk in because you own it while girls are dressing, I mean, it's a hard argument to say you wouldn't go that far, but they are, for being objective, they are two separate actions. You know, walking in and looking at girls that are not appropriately dressed. That's one action that should not happen. But then actually going the distance and saying, I'm going to sleep with somebody on somebody's island that's been trafficked, that's an entirely different thing. So we have to separate them. So I think at a minimum here with this Epstein, I think it provides no value to him and he knows it. And so therefore, why bother? Why? And so I think people are getting in his way because, you know, I think what might happen, and that's the minimum. The minimum. That's the very generous interpretation of what's happening. The worst interpretation on the other end of the scale would be that he actually is in them, and there is implicating evidence that he was engaged not only in participating in trafficking or participating in what happens after the trafficking, right? Like he was with a young girl or girls, right? So it's possible, not taking it off the table. Okay. So those are the two extremes. Then you've got somewhere in the middle where let's just go back to the other extreme where, okay, maybe he didn't personally engage in it, but he knew about other people and then didn't say anything, right? Maybe there's implicating evidence for somebody else, many somebody else's, and you could tie him to knowing about it. Well, guess what? If those files get published, then he's on the hook for why didn't you say something, right? But even let's assume, let's scale a little bit further. Let's move down the scale a little further and say, okay, maybe he doesn't know anything specific. Maybe there's no implicating evidence that he knew about something. So therefore he couldn't say it, right? He couldn't be like, hey, Fred Jones over there did this thing. Maybe he doesn't know that. Okay, fine. But if there's evidence against Fred Jones, well, then guess what? Now he has to do something about it. Well, if he has to stop what he's doing in all these other areas to go and get these Epstein clients, then like he may be looking at it like that's not the win that I want. So again, we're talking about a billionaire. Billionaires, and I've said this before. There's an interesting quote from it was from the book. Uh, uh, oh, I'm drawing a blank on it. I wonder if I can find it real quick in my notes here. Let me do a quick search. Um, um, Let me see if I find it here real quick. Let's do a search. No, it's not coming up, so I don't have it. But it was something along the line of like, um, it was some. I usually remember this quote, and today I'm drawing a blank on it. But it was from a book I read by Richard Conniff, and it was something about alpha male. Like every successful alpha male has this vision of the world that they're trying to impose, and it was like they have this batshit crazy idea that they want to impose on the world, that other people will look and say that's crazy, and they follow it relentlessly. Okay, so that's the gist of it. Even if I can't remember the exact quote, but it's by Richard Conniff, and it was in a book that he wrote. Man, I'm drawing a blank on the title of the book. Whatever. But at any rate, I think when you're at the billionaire status, you have a vision of the world and you will follow it relentlessly. And I think he has a vision for what he wants his presidency to be. This is again at a minimum. And anything that's not part of that vision is in his way. And so therefore, I think the most charitable interpretation of what he's doing is that this offers no value to him and to him. I'm not saying no value. I'm saying no value to him. Now, I would disagree because I would say, like, think about this for a second. If you're not guilty, if you're not guilty of something, you didn't go to the island, you didn't participate in these horrendous activities, right? You were just friends with a terrible guy. Okay. Well, friends with a terrible guy doesn't mean that you're guilty of a thing necessarily. And if you don't have any particular evidence that you could present to the government and say, hey, Fred Jones, so on and so forth. These people, they did this bad thing. Here's the evidence. I know about it. Maybe you have a hint that things were happening, whatever. Okay. Um, he looks, I think, you know, he's got this vision of the world that he's trying to implement, and that the Epstein documents may not provide him the value that he wants for his presidency. So he's like, look, it's a hoax. That's what I think is a minimum going on. So, um, and whether or not he's had the greatest 6 months of any president, I mean, there's been 46 others. So that's a like that's a job of historian, and that's really going to be subjective. But of course, Trump is very much known for, you know, being very, like if he moves a pencil from one side of the table to the next, he's like, that's the greatest way that anybody's ever moved a pencil from this side of the table to this side. Like it's like everything he does is just the most amazing thing, and anything contrary to him is the worst. Like he's just very exaggerative, very hyperbolic. That's how he speaks, and you kind of got to work your way through it. That's my perspective. Now he is coming hard on Thomas Massey. I've defended Thomas Massey many times. I think Thomas Massey is absolutely correct. On insisting on releasing the Epstein documents, and I've seen some criticism of people like. In fact, I'll read it to you right now, just because we're kind of on the subject a little bit here. So let's see here. Yeah, this is it. Do. Let me. I'm not gonna be able to put it up on the screen, but I will read you the comment. So Cernovich, influencer, he says you can want the Epstein files unsealed, which I've been unrelenting on, and he has. He actually sued the government to get some information released, while asking why Massey is now working with Democrats on this. Okay, look, people on the right, people on the left, too, you too, but we're talking about people on the right now. You need to stop trying to make this argument. It's a bad argument. The idea of bipartisanship in itself is not necessarily bad. If it's if we're talking about bringing down child traffickers, bipartisanship is a good thing. If we're talking about implementing, CBDCs, which might eventually lead to a social credit score, bipartisanship is a bad thing. So it's really depending on what is the issue. So by virtue of bipartisanship does not automatically mean bad. All right. Then he goes on and he says, especially as Massey has always has an excuse to obstruct the MAGA agenda. Okay, but remember, Thomas Massey supported Donald Trump, which would be supporting the MAGA agenda. And then he comes out and he goes, I'm supporting this. I'm not supporting this. Here's why. I wouldn't call that an excuse, because he lays out and he goes, this is how it fits with my principles. This is what I've told voters that I stand for, what I'm about. So this idea that him just saying no is obstruction, absurd. This is just politics. It's nonsense. We need to get past it. Then he goes on. He says, Epstein didn't happen in 2025. Something rotten is afoot. Yes, something rotten is afoot. Epstein went for years trafficking children on an island. And I say children because anybody under the age of 18 is considered a child, especially the older you get. I'm 47 now, so I would look at a 17-year-old and I'd be like, you're a child. I wouldn't have said that when I was 22 because I'm only like 5 years older than them. But now that I'm 47, now that I'm literally 30 years, almost twice their age, I would look at a 17-year-old and go, you're a child. But even if you look at somebody that's 17 and you say, well, you're almost 18. Okay, we have drawn the line in the sand and said 18 is the age of a legal adult. That's when we start treating you like adult. That's when you can participate in society like an adult. But until then, you cannot. Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, we treat them as children. And then from there, we start with this baseline, you're a child. And I know if you're 17, you're watching, you're like, I ain't no child. Just hold on for a second. So we say you're a child, but then from there, we have our variations of what it means to be a child. So if you're 17, you're not a child in the same way that my son, who is 6, is a child. Okay? So this is how I'm approaching. I'm just saying, like, look, you are still 17. There are power dynamics between you and a 40-year-old man, for instance, right? There's a power dynamic. And us adults, especially us older ones, it's our job to protect you. So this idea that something rotten is afoot, yes, something rotten is afoot. you have people that at a minimum, even if they only took advantage of somebody's youthfulness, and you had a 17-year-old that's like, "Oh, this seems kind of fun." Right? And I don't think that's the case, but let's just assume for the weirdos out there, it's still a problem. It still needs to be addressed. And look, I'll say it like this so that hopefully it drives home the point. When you're an adult, many things are on the table for you. Okay. When it comes to intimacy, and I'm going to try to keep this family friendly, when it comes to intimacy, there is a whole wide world available to you under the umbrella of consent. You cannot consent when you're 17. You can when you're 18. If we look at it in my kind of in more moral terms, more psychological terms, you're probably not that different. Okay. And I'm not suggesting that like it's okay if you're 17. And so, but what I'm saying is we have a different expectation. We have a different view of you once you turn 18. And once you do, like you can do a lot of things and we might go, yeah, it's a little on the creepy side. So if like a 40-year-old man is dating a 19-year-old girl, I'm going to be like, that's creepy. It's really creepy. And you shouldn't do that. But it's also legal. Okay. Because it's not just like, oh, it's the law. It's that's the line that we drew and said, this is when we're going to treat you like an adult. So until then, we're not going to treat you like a full on adult. And for all the creepers out there, all the weirdos, there are many people that are willing to do many weird fetish like things who are of age. So there is literally no excuse. And so this idea of like a hoax, and yes, we need to do something about it. Something rotten is afoot because you have people that have millions and millions of legal adults that will do all kind of weird stuff to engage in whatever fantasies that you want under the umbrella again of consent. And yet you chose to go find somebody that society has said they're not ready yet. That's a problem. So, as far as I'm concerned, if the Epstein hoax brings Trump down, brings half of our government down, of three-quarters of it, I don't care. I mean, I do care. Bring it down. But I'm not like, "Oh no, we got to save our government." Nope. This is that important. And so here's what I said to Cernovich. I said, better in defense of Thomas Massey. I said, better question. Ask why Massey has to do anything but vote. There's a Republican controlled Congress and the White House, the Republican, vote with a Republican controlled Congress and White House, where the president literally said he would deliver the files, as did the AG and the FBI director, both whom the president nominated. So you have the FBI director, you have the AG, you have the president himself, all three of them, same team, Republican, Team MAGA, Trump's agenda. They all said, we're going to release these files. Okay. And then now Thomas Massey is the bad guy for saying you should release the files. Of all things not to waver on, a child sex trafficking ring is one of them. Like you should not waver on that a bit. And if we're taking a charitable interpretation and that's just not part of your agenda because you don't see there's a value add, you shouldn't be president. Period. I don't care about the rest of your agenda. I don't want a government built on trafficking children. And I can come up with reason after reason and knock down any crazy ideas of, okay, well, maybe what about the ones that are 17? No, there is no what about them. We said when you're 18, you can do creepy stuff. Until then, you can't. That's what we said. We should hold that line. Our children should mean more to us than that. And if they don't, this is not the government I want. So it's not a hoax. And they can say whatever BS they want, like Pam Bondi got on TV or whatever. And she was like, we're not releasing all the videos. I don't like suggesting violence. But you know how people say, like, you need to be slapped? Like just as a metaphor, or, kind of like not like actually saying like, I want to slap you or somebody should go slap you. This is one of those times where it's like, you said that. You suggested that what we want is to see the videos. You should be slapped. You should literally be backhanded for that. That's not what we want. We want people that are harming our children to be punished. That's what we want. I mean, have you ever noticed that every single perv like that, like even criminals in jail, dudes that have murdered people, raped people, some pedophile gets into jail and we know what happens to them. Half the time they die, or they got to be put in solitary or get some sort of special treatment so that the other prisoners who are also evil, but said, hey, there's a line for my evil, right? They will do bad things to them. So basically, what Trump is telling you with this comment right here, he's telling you that murderers and rapists have more morality in a weird sense than he does. Because if they found out who, like if somebody were to be punished that was an Epstein client and they went to jail and they went to Gen Pop, like the rapist and murderers would likely harm them. But yet we got the president, he's hemming and hawing, and he's like, oh, it's a hoax. So no, unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. No way, no how. Let's see what else. Let's see. This one is kind of interesting here. Let's do this one here. I'm gonna have to move it around a little bit because there's a lot. He puts a lot. He said, my statement on the Washington Redskins has totally blown up because Americans, we love our culture fights, but only in a very positive way. I may put a restriction on them that if they don't change the name back to the original Washington Redskins and get rid of the ridiculous moniker Washington Commanders, which I agree is kind of stupid, I won't make a deal for them to build a stadium in Washington. Okay, so number one, president's job is not or should not be to make deals to help build a stadium in any city. Okay? If you want to build a stadium, cool. Get your proper permits or whatever, which I'm not a big fan of, but whatever, that conversation for a different day. Get your proper permits. If you're the developer, if you're the billionaire or the multimillionaire, whatever, you pay for it. You invest in it, or you find investors that are willing to invest in that money. It is not the government's job. So this shouldn't even be a threat in the first place. Second of all, this idea of, putting a restriction on them to change it back, also not in your responsibilities. Sure, I don't care to me, the Washington Redskins, and I'm not going to dive into the history of it. Even as somebody who's of Native American descent, I just don't care. I really don't care. And it's fine. As far as I'm concerned, it's kind of like a positive because they're like, people cheer and pay money to go see a team to win, and they wear all the regalia, positively. So as far as I'm concerned, this is a good thing that people aren't like, oh, it's the Washington Redskins. Yeah, let's talk bad about Indians and Indians, and we'll say, no, they're thinking of Indians, feather not dot, as a positive. So that's a good thing. And I understand people get worked up and they're like, this diminishes. Shut up. Just shut up. But more importantly, tell the president, shut up. This is not something you need to be worried about. He's putting more effort into changing the Washington Redskins name or changing the Washington Commanders back to Redskins than he is delivering pedophiles to the American public and disrupting a potential, we don't know if it's still in existence, but a potential trafficking ring. What? Yeah, bring this administration down if that's the case. He goes on to say, let me see here. Let me move this up a little bit. Is anything else? I think that's the gist of it. We don't have to go in and read all of it. There's a whole bunch of other stuff, but that's the gist of it. Okay. He's like, I'm not going to make a deal. You shouldn't be making a deal. That's not the role of a president. A president's job isn't to help stadiums get built unless you're simply moving government obstacles out of the way. That would be the only thing that he should be responsible for. Then this last thing, I don't know a lot about this, but I am curious. So I'm going to dig into it. He said, it's my great honor to announce our trade agreement with the Republic of Indonesia. Now, if you know, my wife is Indonesian, so I tend to be curious about things from Indonesia. As represented by their highly respected president, Subianto. I think it's how you say it, Subianto. Just so you know, if you're ever reading an Indonesian word, you pronounce all the syllables. They don't have like this I before E except after. They don't have any of those crazy rules. You pronounce every letter. And then some of the words are very long, so it's actually kind of challenging. But anyway, it is agreed that Indonesia will be open market to American industrial and tech products and agricultural goods by eliminating 99% of their tariff barriers. Okay, now if you're removing tariffs, good. Like that. My little pass button. There it goes. I'm good. I'm happy. Remove barriers. Okay, always. Don't put them up. I oppose those. So in that sense, I'm like, oh, that's good. Now I don't know that I would like all the details of whatever deal he's got. I'll take a look and try to report back to you. The United States of America will now sell American-made products to Indonesia at a tariff rate of 0. Good. While Indonesia will pay 19% on all of our products, all of their products coming into the USA. No. No, because all that really means is Americans are paying that tariff. And you can walk through it however you want. But if I'm a business owner, let's say I got this really cool cup that my wife got me right here, it says Liberty Dad. It's got water in it right now. So if I'm the producer of this cup or these cups, okay, and then my costs go up, who do you think pays for that? If you said the consumer or whoever buys it, maybe it's a distributor or whatever, then please go to the head of the class because you are correct. That gets passed on down to the consumer some way, somehow. Now, people in that supply chain, they may absorb some of it, but ultimately, you as the consumer are going to end up paying for it, at least in part, if not entirely. And you may pay even a little bit more, right? Because if there's a cost associated with it, then I might pass on that specific cost to you, but then I might mark it up just a little bit, right? Just like, because I had to even deal with it in the first place. So we've got a mix here. I think it's good that that they're going to remove their tariff barriers, which basically benefits their country. But then we're going to add a tariff. So that's bad. But I am curious about, kind of more details on this. So I'll look into this and see what we've got. I think that's, hold on here. There we go. Is there anything else? The best market in the world. In addition, Indonesia will supply the United States with their precious critical minerals, as well as sign big deals worth tens of billions of dollars to purchase Boeing aircraft, American farm products, and American energy. This deal is a huge win for our automakers, tech companies, workers, farmers, ranchers, and manufacturers. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again. Okay. So again, I will look into this to see further what we have. So that's kind of a summary of some of the things that he's been doing. There's a whole lot more, and I can't get into all of them. But for right now, let's check out some comments and let's see what you guys are chatting it up. What you guys are saying, what I might need to address, any ideas that you have, so on and so forth. So let's take a look at it. No, it's not Zelle. Like you guys keep throwing it out there. And I know you're trying to help me, and it's just, you know what? Here, I'm gonna do it this way. I'm just gonna go find it. So I could search for it right now. And as soon as I find it, I'm going to feel kind of silly for not remembering what it was. So Michael Knowles, I'm going to look it up, and it is let's see here. Because he's been going back and forth with them on social media. So let me scroll through his timeline here, and let's see. Stripe. That's who it is. It's Stripe that he's having a fight with. And let's see here. His most recent post said, "I'm pleased to say Stripe has reached out to resolve this strange issue, which appears to have begun with a government administrative error rather than intentional debanking." You might just be playing nice with them. I don't know. As we investigate, I'm even more pleased to say that we're also exploring legislative solutions to the lack of transparency that often makes these issues unresolvable for countless Americans. We'll discuss more on the show and keep everyone posted as this develops. Depending on the legislation, I may or may not support that. My version of supporting something like this would just be the government coming in and saying, you need to be more transparent, but they should not at all be interfering with business, even if I don't like the way that Stripe is doing business. We can handle that on the free market. I've talked about it before. If you think government can be tough, wait till you see the free market. It is absolutely brutal because it doesn't care. The free market will shut your business down and not shed a single tear and move on, right? There's not much you can do about it. Like you can kind of work with government and say, hey, can you do something to help me, to advantage me? And the government might. But with the free market, it doesn't really work that way. Like, it's just not that, it doesn't work that way. All right, let's go back to the comments here. So we know it's Stripe now. Let's see. Time Surfing Alien says democracy is mob rule. It really is. That's why we have a republic. That's why Ben Franklin told us you have a republic if you can keep it. This is one of the reasons why the current system, while imperfect, I will say I have lately been focusing more on the fact that it's full of checks and balances, which for a government is a very good thing, but actually for anything is a good thing, right? Like even in the free market, let's say I own a big corporation and maybe I'm doing something, maybe I don't treat my workers very well, maybe I pay them very poorly, then maybe Time Surfing Alien could say, well, you know what, I'm going to compete with him and I'm going to, I'm going to be smaller, but I'm going to compete by offering, a more precise product, something that's more nimble, and I'm going to pay my employees more. And then I'm going to celebrate that on the free market. And then people in the free market could go, you know what? I like this. I want to do business with a company that treats its workers well. And on top of it, they're offering a product or a service in a way that DL is not. And so then they can shift over to me. That is the same, conceptually, that's the same thing as a check and balance in the free market. However, what ends up happening is the mob will say, we don't like what they're doing, or somebody will come up with an idea and suggest that the government interfere. And then the mob, if you will, democracy, they'll get behind it and they'll say, yeah, we should do that. We shouldn't have billionaires, or we shouldn't have, a fun one that people love to say is, you shouldn't have I lost the word, monopoly on this. If you're living, you have never seen a monopoly other than the monopoly on force by government. But otherwise, you haven't actually seen a true monopoly, right? Because democracy, mob rule, doesn't necessarily exist in the free market without government assistance. It's true. Go look it up. Go research it. So yes, democracy is mob rule. It's a bad thing. Let's see what else. Interesting. John says Cash App may appear to be sketchy, but it does allow you to convert Bitcoin easily and help comprehend Bitcoin use much more efficiently than other transactional banking apps. Good to know. I was not aware of that. Cool stuff. See, this is why I love my audience, because you guys know stuff that I don't. It's awesome. Time Surfing Alien says, now it's a hoax. What a con job Trump pulled. It is. Because before the election, everybody that was vying for any kind of position in government that was in the MAGA camp, they were like, release the documents. And then even after they got their positions, like Pam Bondi, Kash Patel, they got their position. They're like, yep, we're going to release them. There was a whole big to-do. She's like, they're on my desk. And then later she's like, well, what I meant was that files were on my desk. Stop BSing us, look, woman. We know better. Like, okay, we remember what y'all said. And y'all said there was evidence that you were going to release. And now you're like, nope, no such. Like, you want to talk about gaslighting? That's intense. Let's see. That Liberty Lady, I grandly stand with Massey. I do as well. And you might find that shocking because in the past, I have defended the idea of libertarians potentially running against him. However, I think what a lot of people misunderstand in that defense is that I don't like the way that a lot of people suggest whether or not a libertarian should run against a liberty Republican. And I just said, let's create a different set of circumstances that I will, criteria that I believe will produce better libertarian candidates, but also at the same time might say, we have no libertarian candidate that could run against this guy. So I stand with Massey. I also stand, and I don't think it's a conflict. I stand with the idea that libertarians might run against him if you can present yourself as a better potential candidate than Massey. Good luck. Good freaking luck. Like, unless you're like a Ron Paul, the likelihood that we have somebody that could be better. And when I say better, I don't just mean in what you believe. I mean, can you get more donors? Can you get more votes? Do you have a better network to work with? Because let's face it, when you get to Congress, a network kind of helps. You got to get people on board, right? Can you be better in all respects? And the actual answer is not a single libertarian could tell me one libertarian right now, anywhere, not even just Kentucky, but anywhere that could outperform Thomas Massey in all those respects. At best, you can say, well, this libertarian has better is more libertarian principled than Thomas Massey is. Okay, that's not enough. I'm looking at the job as a whole because it is a job. When I hire somebody, like if I hire somebody, let's say that my podcast blows up big, which it should, and then I start hiring people. I'm not hiring you just because you're really good at the technical stuff. I want to know where you stand, like on issues. And I might be willing to say on this issue, it's not a big deal. This issue is a big deal, but I want to know those. I want to know your character. I want to know, all these other things that I think are important for the job. So it's the same concept. So yeah, I totally stand with Thomas Massey. Let's see. Wait until 28 when Vance runs on releasing the list. What would be weird is if all of this is because Trump is helping set up a Vance presidency, for which I would still be pissed. We shouldn't have to wait till 2028 to get some damn justice for victims so that somebody can get elected. Really? And I don't know that's the case. I'm just speculating. But that would be weird in a very immoral, evil sense. Democrat John says Democrats are the ones that are joining Massey. It's not just Massey either. It's also MTG. That is a great point. I love that you made that point, John. I want you to think about this for a second. The spin is Massey is joining the Democrats. But no, Massey has always been supportive of releasing the list. MAGA was always the ones talking about it. So now, actually, what is happening, that's a great point. I'm going to be running with that on social media. I'm just going to be like, look, it's actually not Massey that's joining the Democrats. They're joining him because this used to be a MAGA issue. And somehow MAGA, part of them, have turned their face against it. Great point. Love it. Let's see. Was not aware of this. Time you said I am Native American descent. Same here. Not like that Congresswoman. I have no problem with the Redskins name. Same here. I don't. People say like, what tribe are you associated with? I'm not associated with a tribe. That's a whole long conversation. But I do have like 20% Native American ancestry. And the kicker in my mind is that when I was in high school, I was in plays and I was doing theater and stuff like that. And we were doing stage makeup. And one of the girls who I was an evangelical at the time, and she was an atheist. And we used to have the most knockdown, drag out debates. It was crazy. She was doing the makeup for me. And she said, first she said, you have pretty eyelashes. So like that doesn't help a young 17-year-old man feel good about himself, but whatever. But then she said, you have high cheekbones. Are you Native American? And I was like, what? I was like, no, because I didn't know my biological father. I still don't, but I know a wee bit more. So anyway, thought that was interesting. Let's see. I use Stripe to send out my invoices to my podcast bros for the work I do for them. My VA lady says, well, keep in mind, just keep a watch out and maybe have a backup plan in your pocket just in case, because they have been known to do squirrely things. Let's see. Oddsman, haven't posted anything. I've been cruelly deprived of my right to be offended. I'm not sure what that's referring to, but if you need to be offended at something, unless it's me, of course, don't be offended at me. But if you need to be offended by like Trump or anything else, you go right ahead. You exercise that right, sir or ma'am. I'm not sure. Well, it says odds man. I'm gonna assume male. I'm assuming your gender. Don't come at me, bro, or not, bro. Anyway, okay. I'll stop trying to be funny. It's not really my thing. Go to Dave Smith for humor, not me. Let's see. Dude to dude. I think we're good on the comments for today. For today. I mean, for now. Let's see. Where are we in time? Okay. Let's go to a commercial break, intermission, and then we'll come right back. And I got a couple more things to wrap up with. So let's do that. Be right back.
Let us make man. This is the scripture where God was talking about creating the human. And when he talked about creating the human, he said, let us make man. And for me, the us in let us make man entails and implies to me that I should be assisting God with making men. And this is where the X for Boys comes into play. This is the new man making machine in Albany, Georgia. We started the X for Boys program in January of 2019. Albany, Georgia is one of the poorest cities in the nation, and also Albany, Georgia has one of the highest crime rates in the nation. And so I took it upon myself to curb that by working with young men and boys in the community and teaching them how to work in the skilled trades, such as working on cars, fixing houses, simple home improvement, simple brake repair, oil changes, plumbing, anything of that nature, to try and help boys actually use their hands.
I appreciate King Randall for taking the time out of his life to give us young men the opportunity to do things that can help us be better men and better people in life.
The X for Boys is creating men that'll be self-sufficient, that will be able to protect their women and children, and will be able to go out and earn things for themselves. We do not teach victimhood. There is nobody holding us down. I am teaching the boys that they can go out and get whatever it is that they want when they want it to. They have the same Father as Jesus, and that is God. And so they are able to go and do whatever they want to. The scripture says, greater is the God that is in me than the God that's in the world. So it's up to us to teach them about the God that's in themselves and to create everything that they want. Let us make man. Follow us on social media at New Emerging King, and you can go to the xforboys.org for our website.
Hey, Liberty fam, do me a favor. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button to my channel. And for the really serious folks out there, I want you to hit that bell so that you never miss an episode. By the way, if you want to support the show, head over to libertydad.locals.com and sign up. For $5, you can be part of this show. There, I'll engage supporters of the show. We'll discuss topics that you want me to talk about, response videos that you would like to see, or anything related to the show. And I'll even have a monthly subscribers only episode. By the way, I'm always looking for dads to join me for Dad Talk. That's my series where I invite everyday dads on to talk about what's important to them in the context of being a dad. No argument, no debate, and dads choose the topic. It's my way of raising dad voices. If you're a dad or you know a dad who has something to say, let's get connected. Episodes air live on Friday mornings or Friday evenings, whichever works best for dads. All right, let's get back to the show. All right, we are back. So that first intermission video, I actually wanted to play that yesterday during my show yesterday morning because I saw in the comments that I had a lot of people there that were supporting Nick Fuentes. I did that show on, him talking about Black people and how terrible they were and all this other stuff. And I was critiquing it. And some of them weren't so happy yesterday. And so I was like, this is going to be a great video to play while they're here. And then I messed it up. I didn't click the right things. And so I played it today, not nearly as personally amusing, but I thought, whatever, but I tried. So I just thought it was funny. Anyway, what else we got here? So I got this video and I thought this was kind of interesting. I just want to point this out here. So let's watch this. Remember the quote at the beginning where I was talking about energy? Here's the quote where Trump says that.
I really think when you're born a certain way.
Yeah.
And even before you can speak and everything, you're sort of a certain character.
Yeah.
And as you get older, you don't change that much.
No.
You can change a little bit, but and you want to change for the better. But you're born a certain way. You're born with a certain energy.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't have energy. If you don't have energy, it's going to be a tough life. But they don't have energy. To be successful, you need energy. You have to be able to go hard and long. Now, you need a lot of other things. You need a lot of things, but you do need energy. I see people without energy. They're really smart, but they don't have the drive necessary to be successful.
Yeah.
Okay, so I kind of agree and kind of disagree. I think there are a lot of things that impact your energy. And why would I talk about this? Well, this is a show about politics and culture. And if we're going to improve our society, we need to have the maximum amount of energy that we can muster. And so I just wanted to encourage you to evaluate your life in general and look for ways where you can improve your energy, because I think he's correct. You do need energy. You may be a very smart person, but maybe you don't have the energy that's necessary. And there's various reasons for that, right? Maybe you're just built like I think Trump is one of those people that what do they call them? They call there's a term for it, but they're the people that can sleep like 5 hours a night, every night, forever. And that's plenty of energy for them. And then they can just run hard all day long and then go get their 5 hours of sleep, come back. There are other people, such as myself, who do not require caffeine and can go very hard. And then there's other people that are like, man, I just really need my caffeine. So I wanted to take something and just kind of make it more positive and say, like, look, do what you can, know thyself. So it's something that I believe very much in. And when you know thyself, when you know who you are, what makes you tick, what works for you, what doesn't work, make those changes appropriately. That way, we can fight this battle. There's a lot of things on the table. Like today, I went through only a small portion of what Trump did this last week. In 1 week. In 1 week, he signed deals, and it was more than, it didn't all only occur in this last week, but he signed deals with Indonesia. He's talked about the Epstein documents. He's talking about the Redskins and, whether or not he's going to help facilitate the building of a stadium. He signed the Genius Act. He signed the Halt Fentanyl Act. He did a bunch of other things. The man is crazy busy. But here's the thing. He really answers to us. So we need all the energy we can. And I'm not about to shill you anything and be like, now buy this super drink. I'm not going to do that. But I'm just telling you, you need to figure out what you can do so that you can keep up as much as you can. And when we all keep up together, then we can hold our government accountable. Because here's the really fun part. It's not just Trump. Trump has done all this stuff, but Congress does things too, right? You look at your local, whoever represents your district. Go look and see what they're doing. What kind of bills have they co-sponsored? What kind of bills have they sponsored themselves? You don't even have to read them. Just go look and see what they're doing. Look at your Senate, your senators. What are they up to? What kind of things are they doing? What kind of topics and ideas are they supporting? Okay, that's the federal government. Then you have your state government, right? You have your governor. You have your state legislature. What are those representatives doing? Check in on them. Then after that, you have your local government. Okay, what are they doing? Are they doing things? You might have a city council for most of you and a mayor. Okay, what are they doing? All of these levels of government are busy, 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 busy. And we, the citizens, are their boss. It's our job to hold them accountable. We can't do that if we can't, with some semblance, keep up with them. So whatever that looks like for you. And maybe you're the kind of person that can sleep 5 hours and run hard all day. Great, good for you. Maybe you're the kind of person you're like, I need a solid 8 hours. Great. Figure out how to get your solid 8 hours. Okay? If you need caffeine to get going in the morning, in your solid 8 hours, get your solid 8 hours, wake up, get your coffee. Maybe if, one of the things that I like to do that I don't get to do nearly enough is I like to have a cup of coffee and go out, especially after I've worked in the yard, and just look at the yard. And then that's a way to kind of invigorate me, to get refreshed and just kind of feel excited for the day. Because what I'm doing is I'm looking at my past work. And again, that's what I said, like, especially after I've worked in the yard. And I just am like, I got my coffee cup, and I'm just like, man, whoever did this yard, me, did a great job, and I just sit there and I don't get to do it often enough. It's usually on maybe a Saturday, but more so on the Sundays, because Saturday I tend to spend time in the yard, and then on Sunday I love waking up, and it's a much more relaxed day for me. I'm still busy, but I can wake up, get the family breakfast. I'm not rushing to jump on a podcast. I'm not rushing to go anywhere. So I can just step outside and just kind of look and just be like, wow, this is great. And I just feel invigorated, and it helps give me a little extra momentum. Now, maybe that's not for you. That's cool. Like, whatever works for you. Maybe waking up in the morning and then just sitting there and watching Instagram reels or whatever, Facebook reels or whatever, just some videos. And you're just like, all right, I'm going to spend the next half hour just watching whatever reels pop up, laughing at them, going, that's interesting, whatever, like, that's terrible, and just maybe that's, your decompression. That's how you decompress and get yourself ready. Maybe you need to do some meditation, right? Maybe you need to go for a jog. People vary, but find what works for you. Because when all of us are at our best, then we can better hold our government accountable, because they're nonstop. I could do, in theory, I could quit my job in theory and go full-time podcasting, which I kind of already am. But even more, like, let's say I did a show in the morning and a show in the evening. Okay. And let's say I dedicated both of those shows. Let's just say 7 days a week, twice a day, 365 days a year. Let's say I did that. And all I did was bill reviews at the state, local, or at the local, state, and federal level. I would still miss bill reviews. There would be bills that I could not get to, right? Because they're that busy. So I need help. We all need help. We can all chip in, right? It's like the comments earlier where people were enlightening me and like, hey, yeah, in this particular, at this company, they're very good with, cryptocurrency, et cetera, et cetera. I don't know those things, right? And these are the kind of things that we can share together and learn, and then move forward and build a better society. So I just wanted to take a moment to kind of like throw that out there. Now, the last thing here, really quickly, I thought this is interesting. Remember POTUS Tracker a while back when I started doing the 47 Weekly? I was like, all right, how do I go and find out what Donald Trump is doing, so that I can report back to you guys? Well, I came across this website called POTUS Tracker. And what it did was it basically had the president, and it would show where he was. So it'd kind of like report on, okay, at this time he was at the White House, at this time he flew over here. I didn't really care so much about that. I'm not too worried about where he is specifically. Maybe you are, and that's fine. But then it also had what legislation or what executive actions he's signed. So it could be legislation, it could be an executive order, it could be a memorandum. And so it would list those, in order of most recent. And so you could scroll down the list and click on them and read them and be like, and then it would have a link. And so that was pretty cool. And then it would also pull up all of his tweets, or actually, I guess his truths, I think is what they call them on Truth Social, since he doesn't really tweet a lot on X. And so it was a really nice website to go to and just kind of get a nice summary of what the president was up to, right? And then you could go do your research from there. So it's pretty cool. Well, now POTUS Tracker has changed. Here it is on the screen. It's now Civic Tracker. And I was like, wait, what? And so if you see at the top here, and I'll zoom in a little bit so that you can see it better. Okay. So now it's got executive, presidential actions, social media, schedule. Okay. Same things. But then they've added some stuff. Congress, social media, Supreme Court, they've expanded. Now they're like, and you can look at it. Let me zoom back out a little bit here. You can see that the president on the free version is, you can click on it and it will take you to civictracker.us executive and then this particular member. And then it has all those things. And then it actually even adds more. So it tells you like he's the incumbent, he's a Republican. Here's his social media profile was updated last on June 30th. Executive positions, how long he's served, when it began, what his position is, right? Really cool stuff. And then you can go down and you can see all of his truths, right? So it lists all these things out. And then you could go to, let's see here. Oops, I clicked on that. You could go to his social media more explicitly, and you can see everything that he's posted, right? I guess it looks like, okay, there it goes. It just has to catch up. So you could scroll through that. We go over, we can see his schedule again. There we go. Da, 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 da. Okay, I had her. It's broken. That's okay. I assume they're going to fix that. No big deal there. But then you have Congress, social media. Now, oh yeah, it does show up. Okay. So you can see Al Green posted this. Dina Titus, representative for Nevada. So you can, let me zoom in on that so you can see it better. All right. So go up here, Al Green, and it shows you that he's the representative for Texas District 9, right? What he tweeted. Dina Titus, scroll down, Pablo Jose Hernandez, Puerto Rico, right? This is really cool. I like this. This looks like a really neat site. And then if we go up here again, we can go to Supreme Court. We go to Supreme Court, all terms, justices. Looks like I can't click on them. This is going to require pro version. But it looks like what's on the docket. So we got like Linda McMahon versus New York. And this is decided July 14th, 2025. This is a really cool website. And I bring this up one so that you can check it out, because even the free version is valuable. Like you can just kind of keep up with your government, which we should be doing. But if you are so inclined, you could upgrade to pro. Doesn't tell me. It looks like you sign in. So I think you sign in and they say try it pro for 7 days, which presumably means that there's a paid version after the 7 days. I'm going to look into this. So why am I telling you this? For two reasons. Number one, go check it out. Utilize it. I mean, I just told you about energy. You've got to do those things to keep yourself on your A game. But if you're interested in this stuff, this is a good resource for you. So bookmark it. You can, and again, the website is civictracker.us. Go check that out. It's a phenomenal website. I didn't realize that they were going to be updating it from POTUS Tracker and then expand it. They have. I think it's awesome. I love this because I've been thinking of a way like, how do I find what my, what Congress is saying on social media so that I can look in and say, I better talk about that. Right. So this is one good way of finding that information. Now, how do I look up Supreme Court? Now, you could go to the Supreme Court's website, which I think is SCOTUS.gov, I think. There's that. And there's like a SCOTUS blog. You can go there. That's a good resource. But I think it's good. This is one of the great things about the internet is that we have websites that are taking this information and putting it together in a nice, neat format for people like you and me to go and look at and say, okay, what is my government doing? Now, this is on the federal level, and that's great. Maybe somebody will get the idea in different states and they'll do it at the state level as well. And that would be super duper fabulous. Or maybe Civic Tracker will grow and they will and they will be able to expand to the state level. Whatever the case, I think this is awesome. Go check it out. So that's the first reason I want you to check it out. The second reason, I'm always harping on you guys like, hey, if you can, join Rumble, get yourself an account, come and comment because, we talked about it at the beginning of the show. I need chatters. The chatters help me stay in the program. Staying in the program helps me earn money. And when I earn money, I can go and I can utilize these services and pay for them. So while you might be using the free version, you could just simply make an account on Rumble. You could chat in there, encourage other people. You can spread the show, help this show grow. And as this show grows, then I will make money. And then I'm not just going to sit like a fat cat. I'm going to do the same thing that POTUS Tracker did. I'm going to keep improving the show better and better and better. Because if you care about liberty, if you care about libertarian ideas, getting out there, talking about all these different topics and saying, here's where a libertarian would stand. Here's why a libertarian idea is something that you should consider, right? That is because this show grows and I can start utilizing some of these services myself, because there is a point where I can't just pay out of pocket, right? And so there are ways for you to help without necessarily pulling out of your pocket. One of the ways, get in here and on the chat, help me out. I mean, spread the show. If you see a show that you really liked, I know you're not going to like all of them, and that's okay. Some of the shows will resonate more with you than other ones, right? One, let me know. Man, that was a great show. I love it when you talk about this. That I'll keep that in mind. You know, just like earlier, John said, I'm looking forward to this show. And then I was like, well, crap. I was planning on making this show a basically a, you know, you can think of it like a members only, but a Rumble Premium. And now I've got somebody that I don't think is a Rumble Premium subscriber looking forward to a show. So I immediately made the decision, I'm going to find something to talk about so that John can tune in, right? I am here to make this show better and better and better. And with your help, I will. Okay. So that's the other reason I'm bringing up Civic Tracker. Twofold. Go check it out yourself. Keep up with your government, and then help me with the show. And then I will utilize the benefits that I get from monetizing to go and myself invest in these things so that I can deliver a better show. And maybe even one day, more shows so that there's more of what you like to hear. Maybe you don't care about bill reviews, right? Maybe you read them on your own and you decide you figure that out. Maybe you don't care about that. Maybe you care more about cultural topics. Well, the more this show grows, the more I can talk about those things, right? The more resources I will be able to acquire to help me talk about those in a competent manner. And if you care about libertarian ideas specifically, this show growing, that will help put the libertarian ideas out there for more people to hear. And hopefully, you know, I am communicating in such a way that you really enjoy the perspective that I bring and that I can help bring libertarian ideas to the average person. So that's my pitch to you folks. Check it out. If nothing else, just check it out for free. But if you want to help the show, you know, jump over on Rumble, or if you don't want to, that's cool. I get it. You know, you don't have to do everything, but at least promote the show. Tell other people about it. Say, hey man, you got to check out this dude. Like, you like bill reviews? He does bill reviews. You're concerned about what the president's doing? Check him out on Wednesdays, right? Like, you know, hey, he's walking through Mom Donnie's platform. He's doing a lot. So I'm trying to have that same energy that Trump was talking about. And with your help, we will grow liberty. So thank you so much. All right. Any final comments in here? Let's see. Killing me. My VA lady. She's true. She's speaking truth here. She said, and I will be here making sure Liberty Dad shows up on time. Boot. This is a little shoe. That's the boot on the neck. Okay. I'm not a bootlicker. I just get it. It's like, if I'm 5 minutes late, I can guarantee you I look at my phone and she's got a text message with a little clock saying, hey, where are you? Get your butt going. Right. And I promise you, like this week, like I've been looking, I'm like, all right, I've been aiming for no later than 3 minutes late. And I just keep dialing it back. I'm like, all right, now, 7:30 on the dot is the aim. But if I have to be late, I'm like, all right, no more than 3 minutes. That's kind of like my grace that I think I'm seeing. And eventually even that won't be good enough. Right. So help me improve the show, support my VA lady. If you could use her services, check her out. As she grows, she will be able to get a bigger boot to stand on my neck and make sure that the show is even better. And then other shows too. She does some other shows. She helps out. She works with Mark Kay. She works with Larry Sharp. Check out their shows. And when you check out their shows, you're also helping her as well. Let's see. Time Serving says, have a great day, everyone. Have a great day to you. And then final word here, DL is super close to being monetized on YouTube. Yes. So if you're on YouTube and you're just like, look, I'm not going to Rumble, that's cool. Promote me on YouTube. Get this show growing there. We're all over the place. We're doing our best to grow the show and to bring liberty to everybody that's willing to listen. And then make a great show that people want to listen to. With that, folks, I'm going to get out of here. I'm not doing my closing until I can revise it a little bit. So I will see you tonight. And John, I look forward to you joining the chat, and I will have something for you and for others. So with that, let's head on out of here.